Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to SP Reviews, where today we have ourselves a track by an act named Alexander Miller titled Faith. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on the screen on YouTube and we're going to listen through it from start till finish. And we're going to hear what we think. Let's go, what do we got? Okay, vocals with distorted guitar on the side. Is this metal? That's pretty dope actually, I like how it comes in with it. You are listening to Faith by Alexander Miller off of the album This Existence, available August 26th, 2022. Great coming in with the pianos here. I like the variety with the drums in this part as well. I think that sounds really good. And the clean vocals are coming through really nicely as well. I think the combination of the piano, the guitar is coming in earlier but kind of stepping away for the more colorful elements in the mid-range is a smart idea. Very calming here. Great variety with the lead guitars here as well, nice inclusion. And it's nice to have the growlers as well, the vocal fry there. It's a great textural shift for the singer at this point. Great change of perceived loudness as well. And like having the music kind of fade out at that point, to have the growl just be there by itself, just leaving me alone, kind of symbolizes him being by himself in that wish. Catchy as hell vocal melodies going on top of this chord progression with some interesting harmonies there. Interesting chord textures. Okay, nice transitions between the two halves of the chorus, the hook line. I really like the airy texture to that lead guitar there. We're paying close attention to changing how things are in the frequency spectrum. The different octave ranges. I think that's a smart choice because if you have too much in the low end, people get used to it. It's why, like, an electronic dance music, for example, you just don't have a song that's the drop the entire time. You need to have the build to go down to it. Works well for like breakdowns in metal and rock as well. It's an absolute groove though, man. I like what we are able to kind of do with music nowadays with production and everything like that. Like, I don't know a lot about Alexander Miller because this is my first sort of impression of their work, but they've got all the bases covered, I think. I think it's fairly good use of real estate for the 3 minutes we've had so far. Oh, synth parts on top? I wasn't expecting this lead texture in the high end, but that's a great change up for the last chorus. What I will point out as well, just whilst I'm here, is can you hear how the vocals, the words that he's saying, the syllables, they line up with the kick drums? Great unison there with the groove. It's fantastic. So we didn't have a dedicated lead section, but I don't particularly mind that. In metalcore and genres like that, you don't really need it. The vocals, the story is the focal point. I mean, that's hella tight. That vocal technique there for that scream is fantastic. Great way to start a week. No, fantastic. I'm really impressed by that. Sorry, I didn't mean to go into an ad. It was just the end of the song and it kind of cut like that. And welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track, Faith by Alexander Miller. What do I think this track is about? I think it's about someone who, you know, they're struggling. They're struggling to cope with their life, what's going on within it, how things beat them down, and how they just want to be left alone. But they've got other people that they want to keep going for, other people that are important to them to let them know that they're loved and appreciated and that they'll be taken care of. Basically, he's saying to them, have put your faith in me. Even if I am going through hell right now, I'll still be there for you. You know, like, we'll get through this, etc. I think that's a beautiful message. I think that is, I think a lot of people struggle, but I think it's great that we showed some vulnerability here. We learned a little bit more about Alexander Miller and who they are. And I can't speak for their situation as I don't know them personally, but if they are going through that hell, you know, hopefully things improve for them and hopefully the people that they care about are able to be okay as well. I think that regardless, the story is well told there. You know, it's very insightful about the musician and it's interesting to listen to. I think the vocal performance by Alexander Miller is solid. I think the clean vocals, you know, they illustrate a solid vocal technique in the hidden chest voice. I'm also really happy with how we came across with the growls, the screams, and all that. I think they were well done as well. Clearly, we spent our time learning how to do this stuff in a way that's really healthy for us, and I think that they've got it nailed in all counts there. No complaints about the way they vocalize. And I think that the way they sang showed maturity emotionally, and it resonated well and connected well to the story itself. So there was a great sense of unity there. In relation to the rest of the track, I mean, like, it's 4 minutes 25, so it's quite a long track. You know, usually the sweet spot for singles is 2 to 4 minutes, but I think that the real estate was used well, as I mentioned in the review. We had, you know, like, lots of different sort of riffs on the guitars, lots of different beats on the drums. The bass line at the bottom was nice and supportive. We had lead lines on the guitars as well that came over top of various sort of chorus sections and such. We also had piano as well come in there, I think, if I'm not mistaken, so that was a nice touch as well. A different texture to what we had with the mid-range guitars and their down-tuned power chords. And as well, we had synths later on. And so there was a variety of instruments in there that managed to make the arrangement colourful and interesting, and that harmonised well with Alexander's vocals, regardless of whether there were the screams or regardless of whether there were the clean parts. In that mid to high range there, it sounded like, it was incredibly heavy sounding, like with these down-tuned power chords, the double kicks, and interesting sort of like gentish kind of metalcore grooves there, with a relatively catchy hook line from the vocalist. Like, we knew how to sing and how to get a chorus stuck in someone's head, and to be able to meld those heavier elements, those more sort of aggressive elements, with a catchy sort of those catchy vocal harmonies, especially with that "Put Your Faith in Me" part at the end of the chorus, is fantastic. I'm really happy with it. No complaints there whatsoever. There was complexity within the individual parts, like the lead sections with the those kind of like single. I think that might have been, you can kind of alternate pick a string and kind of play different frets, like that. I think that might have been something we were doing there. I don't think it would have suited to go any heavier than it. I think that we managed to find the right balance of heaviness and like catchiness without it becoming inauthentic or disingenuous. Again, there's lots of exploration with the fills on the toms and the drums and everything like that. It was fantastic there, and the synth parts that came in later on were like a further articulation or representation of the lead parts we had on the guitars earlier on, and they were a great texture shift, you know. I like the fact that we didn't just have all the instruments all the time. Like, again, those synth parts came in later on. We had moments where it was just a vocalist. We kind of had things kind of pan out, like with less kind of mid-range kind of essence in the verse parts there, having the vocals kind of be more of a focal point. But we also had changes of perceived loudness, you know, with everything getting louder in the chorus as opposed to the verse. And yeah, again, I mentioned the lack of solo sections not being an issue. I still stand by that. If the vocals weren't as interesting, if there wasn't as much variety to the different guitar riffs and drum parts and such, if there wasn't instruments coming in and out, I would have had an issue with that, but we don't need to worry about that because that was nailed. So well done. The recording, mixing and mastering, the studio production is tight. I'm really happy with how it sounded. I think that it's a great first impression, primarily not only because there was not a note out of place with the performance and also because the vocals were handled well, but also because we just had someone who could clearly like handle the leveling and the filtering and EQing of the different instruments. Like the vocals came through so cleanly, man. The vocals were sitting in their great presence in the mix there, regardless of whether it was the clean parts or the growling or the screaming or whatever. It was great. The harmonies were nicely panned on the sides a little bit there to kind of have more width to it. And yeah, they were great in the mix. The drums were nice and punchy. I'm not sure if it was like an acoustic drum kit or if it was sampled, but I don't mind either way. There's lots of sampling in metal nowadays. It's obviously totally fine. And there's a great tone to those, whatever it was. It's really important to make sure that if you've got great sounding guitars, you have great sounding drums and vice versa. You can't really have any weak spots, so I'm fantastic. It's fantastic that they got the right sound for it. It cut through the mix without kind of chomping too much into it. The bass was nicely handled on the low end. The pianos, where it had a misty sort of sound to them, that was nicely sort of sitting in that mid-range there and added a bit of extra reverb to it to kind of make it a bit less kind of like, a bit more mysterious, should I say. And then the synths, of course, were in that higher range. And I'm glad that we weren't I'm glad that we kind of softened them a little bit. There's a chance some of the frequency response in those synths could have been a little bit harsh, but we managed to kind of balance it well and with what we needed for the rest of the mix and handled it well. I mean, it was nice and wide in the stereo field. There were no resonant frequencies in the frequency spectrum. And again, there was dynamic range because there was changes in perceived loudness, and it was nice and loud without pumping. And this is basically my review of Faith by Alexander Miller, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go check out their various social medias and their YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as either hell more than ever thought the crazy stuff going on in the world, and I will catch you in the next review. Spiderhands Out.